Hi, so this is my video blog on HD production skills and is basically what I've learned during the first term at Ravensboure. So when it comes to health and safety, you've got to think of the risks that affect you and you've got to think of the risks that affect the equipment. You must always remember to lift heavy objects in the proper way by bending your knees to not cause back injury. Also, it's really important to keep all your equipment in one place so you don't lose it and therefore move it around from that dedicated spot. Cables can be a really bad tripping hazard, so tape them to the floor and make them very visible so that you're not going to trip over them. Also, when not using the cords, remember to wrap them the correct way. So the correct way to wrap a cable is to come over like this with the first one, and then for the second one you twist the cable and come under. Now effectively there you're doing a figure of 8. Now that's the correct way to wrap a cable to make sure it has a long lasting life. Okay, so when using stands that have heavy equipment on top, it's important to make sure that the equipment is in line with the front leg. That's because, as you can see here, if the single leg is not at the front, it allows the stand to fall forward, like that. However, if the leg is at the front with the equipment in line with it, it's not going anywhere. Cables should also be tucked under one leg of a stand, because if they do get snagged, that way the whole stand will get pulled with the equipment on it, rather than if it gets snagged, the whole equipment falls over. This could potentially bring harm to you and also the equipment that is involved in the accident. The electricity involved in lighting can also be very harmful. When turning on a light, make sure everything's turned off when plugging it in. When lights are ready to turn on, warn everyone in set that you're about to turn the lights on by saying lights on. First, before doing that, check for any dangerous currents that might be running through the stand that the light is on. You can do this by using the back of your hand. That way, if you do get an electric shock, your hand contracts and shoots away from the stand, rather than if your hand was holding on it and you get attached to the stand. Okay, so when using big cameras, such as broadcasting cameras, when you're transporting it from one place to another, carry it with the battery in front of you and the lens behind you, facing behind you. This is so that when you're walking with it, if you were to trip, you fall forward and the battery and the back of the camera hit the floor rather than the expensive lens that's on the front. So when you're attaching the camera onto the tripod, always test before you let go completely with your hands that it's firmly on there. Give it a little check. When on a location for filming, you must check all the hazards that could be involved on that shoot. By filling out a risk assessment form, you can help eliminate any potential accidents that could happen that day. For instance, you may, at the beginning, have an extremely high potential likelihood of harm. However, the chances of this actually happening are very low. So the overall outcome would be a medium chance of harm. On the other end, you might have a very low likelihood of getting harmed, but the probability that it's going to happen is extremely high. Either way, you need to remedy that problem so that you decrease the overall harm to low or very low. When using certain cameras with an eyepiece, you must make sure you adjust that eyepiece to your vision. Otherwise, despite it might looking like it's in focus when you're recording, when you later put it up on post on the screen, it may in fact not be. So setting the ISO is setting how sensitive the sensor is at picking up the light. So if you bump up the ISO to say 800 or 1600, you get large amounts of digital noise, visual noise, which looks really, really horrible in the end product. And that's something you need to get rid of completely. So selecting a low ISO avoids this. However, a low ISO means the image is going to be a lot darker. So you need to counterbalance this by changing either the aperture and or the shutter speed. So the aperture controls the amount of light that's let into the camera. Now this works as an opening and closing mechanism on the lens. When that circle there is open as far as it can, it's letting in the most light, and this would be a low f-stop. How low depends on the lens. It can be as low as 1.4 or 1.2. Now this will give a nice shallow depth of field. When the circle there is closed much more and is letting in less light, the f-stop will be higher, say like f16 to f22. And the depth of field here will allow everything in the frame to be in focus. Now in film, shutter speed can give us either a really sharp image or it can give us an image with motion blur on it. This is depending on how fast or slow the shutter speed is. Now the generic setting to shoot in is 25 frames per second, and you normally use a shutter speed that is twice the value of your frame rate. However, there are times when you want to manipulate an image to give it a certain look, and the best example of this is with rain. Now in this case, if you use a fast shutter speed, you'll capture each individual drop, whereas a slow shutter speed will add motion blur and show the rain falling as lines. Now another thing you want to set up when filming is the white balance. And to do this manually, you use a blank white piece of paper and you hold it up in front of the lens to calculate that this is in fact white. Once you've done that, all the colour in your shot will be as it's supposed to be, and there won't be any sort of bluey or reddy tints to the image. So there are lots of different types of lenses you can get. The standard one that comes with a digital SLR would be an 18 to 55mm, and that's basically the focal length that it can reach. So these ones allow you to zoom into the subject for which you're filming, but these generally don't allow a lot of light into the actual camera itself. If you're wanting to let in a lot of light, then you might use a prime lens. These lenses don't have a zoom and they're at a fixed focal length, but they allow a lot more light to enter the camera, so you can use it in low light situations. They also can have a lower f-stop number, which means a wider aperture, so the irises open up a lot more, so that also, as well as letting in a lot of light, creates a nicer depth of field, a more shallow depth of field. Now, being able to choose between each lens can come at great advantages, especially for perspective shots. A good example of this is in Die Hard 4 when Bruce Willis is running away from a truck that's chasing him. Now, in the shot, it looks like the truck's really close up to him and is right sort of nipping at his heels. However, because they use a zoom lens, they're able to get the camera really far back and zoom in. Bruce Willis will appear in the shot the same size that he would be, however the truck is blown up much bigger, gives the appearance of it being much closer to him when really it's really far away from him. The human eye can see light a lot better than a camera can, so lighting is very important when on set of a film, and it must be just right. Now in pretty much every scenario, lighting is always lit from above, because as humans we naturally associate light as being from above because of the sun. So that's how we light when setting up a scene. A popular setup is 3-point lighting. Now if this is the subject, we would have a key light as the main source of light onto the subject here. We will then have a fill light over here to get rid of some of those shadows. This, however, flattens the subject against the background, so that we therefore need to have a light shining on the background, which brings the subject forward. There are lots of other pieces of equipment that are used with lighting, such as diffusers. Now a diffuser can be used if the light is too harsh on a subject. You can place these up again on stands in front of the light, and you can alter them as you please. So depending on what look you might be going for, you might need a lot of diffusers and softeners. The other piece of equipment are gels. Now gels also sit in front of the light to help manipulate the colour of the light. There are daylight gels which help maybe a more orangey light look slightly more natural. You can get quarter blues, half blues, so you use as many as you want accordingly. Now diffusers can be used in front of the light to decrease the power of the light by darkening it, and softeners soften shadows of the subject. When lighting women, they like to be lit softly, and so that their shadows are more rounded. Men can use sharp shadows to make them sort of look more rugged and things like that. And on top of that, you might be using guards to help channel the light in ways. For instance, you might just want a tiny bit of light just glowing on the eyes and the rest in complete shadows, in which you would have to set up blackboards to help angle that light to produce that. Also, you can use reflectors to bounce light onto a subject from angles that you might not be able to reach with the lights themselves. Now types of mic you can get are a boom mic, which can be powered either with onboard batteries or by an external power source. Now you must be certain in which it is, because you wouldn't want to go running external power into a mic that's already running off a battery, as you will blow the mic. Now there's cardinal mics, which we call a shotgun mic or a rifle mic. This is where it records sound directly from where you are pointing it at, as opposed to recording general noise at an equal level all around the scene. Now there's also the radio mic, which is a mic that clips onto the subject that's talking, that will only pick up the dialogue of that person and not the sound of everyone else in the room or anything else in the room. A mixer is a piece of kit in which these microphones would pass through to before plugging into the recording device, although some mixers do have an onboard recording mode. This is a 4.2 SQN mixer and has 4 inputs with XLR connectors to input the microphones and 2 outputs, left and right, to which the umbilical cord connects. This cord then has 2 ends that plug into the recording device. The cable marked with the red is track 1 and is always plugged into the left, but not in Japan. So the mixer itself is used to monitor the sounds from the microphone before it's entered into a recording device. The BPM meter here on the front will start to flicker when it's turned on, and if it does do so, then you know it's picking up the sound. A male XLR cable has pins, whereas a female XLR cable has holes. To make sure we know the exact levels of the light and colour in our shoot, we use monitors that illustrate the exact and true levels of what we are filming. This is because we are not necessarily seeing the true images on the camera screen itself. A histogram is a graph that shows light data, and you can use these to check the levels and alter them accordingly. If all the data is over to the right side of the image, it means the image is going to be very overexposed and lack detail. And if all the data is over to the left of the graph, it's going to be really underexposed and be very dark. So you want to get a nice balance and have the data more or less in the middle of the graph. Grayscale charts look at the whites, greys and blacks, and as you can see work as a gradient from black to white. This chart allows people to make sure that it's correct for broadcasting. Vector scopes measure colour and their intensities. Anything inside the circle is good. That means it's a legal colour. Anything outside of the circle is bad because it's an illegal colour and means it won't be broadcasted, therefore it needs to be removed in shooting. Waveform monitors allow you to monitor the luminance or brightness of your image. So the possibilities available to us in post-production are pretty amazing and basically endless. However, it's very important for us to get as much as we can get right in pre before we go into post. That makes the job in post-production a lot easier. One thing that I've learned recently that's very important is how useful the clapperboard is and how important it is to make sure that you do get all your shots and scenes done with a clapperboard. This makes it so much easier for you in post-production when you can line everything up. And you can name each individual file as well, what it is, so you know exactly what one you're using when you are using it. So the post-production software that's available to us are things like Adobe Premiere, Final Cut, Avid, After Effects, and you choose each one of these programs accordingly depending on what you want to do to your video. So in Premiere you can import a folder of videos and then you can drag and drop these videos into a sequence to which you can manipulate them in. This is where you can cut and stitch videos together. You can also detach the audio so you can manipulate that separately. Premiere also includes a range of tools and effects that you can use to aid to making your film great. There's things like the ripple delete, key time framing, the razor tool, speed duration change. There's so many, and loads more. The roll-in edit tool allows you to cut something off the beginning clip and it will replace it with the clip after it. So if you didn't want a section from the beginning clip, you cut that down and it will replace it with more video from the second clip. Certain ways you edit your film decipher what sort of genre it is. For instance, you might have fast-paced cuts from shot to shot if you're shooting an action thriller, or longer slow transitions for a romance or drama. So After Effects is best used for video effects like explosions or bullets or lightsabers and things like that. However, you may not want to edit your whole entire sequence on that, so you would export it after you've added the effect and import that file into the Premiere where you continue to edit after that. Magic Bullet and DaVinci are software packages that are very popular for colour grading. They give you the ability to get very specific with the colour and shadows in your movie. In the software there's a library of preset looks which you can apply to your video, or by using the colour wheels you can find your own unique specific look in which you can spend hours playing around with. Like I said, there's so much you can do in post-production that there's things that you can even include that you might have missed out in pre. such as depth of field. You can even alter the depth of field on post-production, make it shallower in post than you might have actually filmed in. Using masking and tracking, you could also put something on a TV screen. By using tracking, you can make sure that that image stays on the TV for even when the camera's moving. But like I said, you should probably try and get these things done in pre, as perfect as you can before even going into post. So MAM stands for Mobile Application Management. So you upload your footage using metadata, which is short information about it, like where it is, what it is, and stuff like that. People can access it when and how they need it. This can be really useful as it works as a huge online library, really. So if you're ever working on a project and you think, oh, I really could do with that clip that I recorded ages ago, you can just log into MAM and retrieve it. The huge advantage of this is that you can be anywhere and still access it. However, the MAM we use at Ravensboure, you can only access when you're in Ravensboure, so that's not very good. Okay, so that's it, and thanks for watching.